Randy Meeks was born in late 1978 or early to mid 1979. He was the firstborn in his family. We never see his parents, but his mother is mentioned in Scream 2. In 1982 or 1983, when he was 3 or 4, Randy got a younger sister named Martha. The family lived in the Northern California town of Woodsboro, where Randy went on to attend Woodsboro High School with his friends Sidney Prescott, Tatum Riley, Billy Loomis, and Stu Macher. Randy was a self-professed geek and expert of horror movies, particularly titles that featured the original Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis. In September 1996, Randy was 17 or 18 years old and working in a video store. He was fired. Twice. But they still brought him back for a third stint. Guess his film knowledge superseded what I can only assume is really bad customer service or situational awareness. But holding a high school job would become the least of Randy's worries when Woodsboro became the scene of a series of murders committed by a killer in a five-and-dime store mask, Ghostface. To learn how Randy was an inspiration for an entire subgenre of movies, how he almost played a very different role in Scream 2, and how he left a legacy that still marks the Scream franchise today, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Horror History. I am Randy Meeks, or at least I would be if I was a Scream character instead of an internet personality. Portrayed by Jamie Kennedy, Randy was a legacy character and fan favorite. While Casey Becker brought the audience into the tension and fear of Scream in the opening scene, it was Randy Meeks who would take over the role as the proxy of the movie audience. As a result, his controversial death is still hotly debated 2 sequels after his last appearance. I'll be analyzing his entire influence on the Scream franchise, so let's start at his 1996 introduction in the small fictional town of Woodsboro, California. We first meet Randy outside Woodsboro High School on a September Thursday morning, the day after the murder of Casey Becker, sitting with his friend and crush Sydney, her boyfriend Billy, her best friend Tatum, and Tatum's recent boyfriend Stu. Randy is the type of guy to put on sunglasses just to catch the scrape in his mouth, then immediately take them off. He secretly laments his inability to date Sydney, who's been with Billy for 2 years at this point. It's unclear when Randy and Sydney met, but they've known each other long enough to be natural and comfortable with each other. Sydney doesn't seem aware of Randy's crush on her, or at least doesn't mention it, while Randy is always just missing his chance to shoot his shots.
Do you think Sid would go out with me? There goes my chance with Sid.
It's too bad he never found out about this compliment intended for him.
Do you like scary movies, Sydney?
I like that thing you're doing with your voice, Randy. It's sexy.
He also has a friendly rivalry with Stu. They seem to enjoy busting each other's balls, which may stem from a rivalry over who is the true horror expert of the group. Truth be told, all of them know a thing or two about horror. Except Tatum, who doesn't know John Carpenter from Wes Craven.
You're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick or something.
Stu and Randy have also both had longtime crushes on Sydney, which I imagine also helped fuel the rivalry. Our first impression of Randy is that he's a dork and a little bit of an outsider. He's the only single in the group, which according to his rules may be another factor in his survival. He also has no tact when trying to dunk on Stu, and he can't read the room, obliviously describing gore and violence while his crush with the murdered mother squirms in discomfort. Even his outfits are designed to read outsider. Cynthia Bergstrom, the costume designer on the original Scream, intentionally designed Randy's look with bright and bold colors to say, "Look at me, I want to be seen." As Cynthia Bergstrom put it, Randy was obviously intelligent but a bit goofy and not really taken that seriously. He had a big personality and liked attention, hence the brighter colors. Hush Puppies were very popular at the time. They were huge and okay, not so timeless, but totally geeky and perfect for Randy. While attending Woodsboro High, Randy worked at the one place a teenage horror geek with little tact fits in, a video rental store. Even there, he did not really fit in. His job not only gave him more consistent access to movies, it also gave him a sense of authority among his friends. When he and Stu are debating who could be the killer, Randy is animated with a strong, confident voice.
See, the police are always off track with this shit. If they'd watch Prom Night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
But when Sydney and Billy come up,
Maybe Sydney wouldn't have sex with him.
it's obvious that both Billy and Stu intimidate Randy, and Randy's the first one to correctly guess them as the killers. Initially, it's just a guess based off of patterns that he'd seen in movies, which is also why he includes himself as a suspect.
You're absolutely right. I'm the first to admit it. If this were a scary movie, I'd be the prime suspect.
It's not until the house party finale that Randy's approach gains credence. Up to this point, nobody considers the murders to actually be following well-known horror movie patterns, except Billy and Stu, of course. So when Randy takes the stage to present the rules, it becomes his moment of power.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Like on the quad with his friends at the beginning and the video store with Stu, Randy is in his element here, though he's unaware of how right he is.
Number 1, you can never have sex. No! Big no-no! Sex equals death.
Hey, Stu, didn't you used to date Casey?
Yeah, for like 2 seconds.
Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. The sin factor.
What movie is this from? I spit on your garage.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Randy would soon break one of his own rules, but before we unpack that, we've got to take a break. So, I'll be right back.
You see, you push the laws and you end up dead. Okay, I'll see you in the kitchen with a knife.
As I've discussed in my Scream Things You Missed video, Scream was built as a commentary on the horror genre as a whole. Randy serves as the audience surrogate. He's aware of the typical horror movie tropes, and he's at least somewhat aware that he's in the midst of a horror film scenario himself.
It's the millennium. Motives are incidental.
Scream is a satire that leans hard on its meta-cinema concept. It's a movie that acknowledges that other movies exist while pretending that it's not a movie at all. This is nothing new. Director Wes Craven's own New Nightmare did something similar 2 years earlier with Robert Englund playing Robert Englund becoming Freddy Krueger. What sets Scream apart from other slasher films and other meta-horror movies is Randy. Randy's acknowledgement of the patterns and tropes of horror movies are so spot on because the killers are also aware of the rules and following them. But what makes Randy the perfect audience proxy isn't just that he asks the same questions that we do while watching safely at home, it's that he can also be wrong. After the rules speech, Randy takes a call revealing that Principal Himbry has been ghosted. Not like the shitty millennial version of ghosted, but like gutted and strung up on the football field. Everyone leaves to go catch a glimpse of the corpse, leaving Randy drinking alone in the house, apparently ignoring rule number 2. Ghostface sneaks up behind him, but gets distracted upon hearing screaming Sydney outside. So that's where they got the title of this movie from. Randy eventually realizes danger is afoot and steps outside where he's awarded with a few smacks in the face from a terrified Gail Weathers car phone. I'm assuming he twisted his ankle or pulled a muscle in his leg or something as he went down because all he can do is scoot himself away to avoid being hit by the fleeing news van, and when we next see him, he's limping and holding his leg. We know that it wasn't one of the Ghostface killers who injured his leg because Stu is in the house fighting Dewey at the time and Billy should still be playing dead in the upstairs bedroom. The movie doesn't show us exactly where Randy was in between this and this, but before anybody asks, no, it was not Roman who attacked his leg. That makes no sense. Anyway, Randy limps up to Sid, who pulls a gun on him, unsure to believe who is the killer between him and Stu. She locks both of them out. We don't see what happens behind the closed door, but we can hear Randy's pleas to be let inside.
Elvis going crazy!
But it seems like he's able to separate himself from Stu just in time to be led into the house, where he repeats his theory to Sydney and Billy.
Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
He shoots Randy, hitting him in the shoulder and sending him flying through the coffee table. This keeps him out of the climax, but we can assume that he was able to hear Billy and Stu's entire plot as he continued to lie on the foyer floor. He comes back to shortly after Sydney defeats Stu, but before he can finish telling her, "I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin," he's knocked right back out by Billy, where he stays until both villains are taken care of.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life.
The argument could be made within the rules that Randy being a virgin superseded his drinking sin, thus allowing him to survive. But I personally think the rules are more of a best practices and less of an automatic disqualification. If you think about it, all of the survivors do break a rule at one point or another. Sydney obviously loses her V card, Dewey says he'll be right back at the precinct, and Gail says she'll be right back before heading off with Dewey to investigate the abandoned car. As the sun rises on a September morning, Billy Loomis and Stu Macher, the Ghostface killers, are dead, presumably. And our survivors, Sydney Prescott, Gail Weathers, Dewey Riley, and Randy Meeks, leave all of the tropes and rules behind to live quiet lives of contemplation. The end. Not really, there's a sequel.
Because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
But before that sequel would be released, Randy breaks another rule.
Sex equals death.
Perhaps due to his confidence that the threat was over, sometime between the Woodsboro murders and the start of college, Randy Meeks breaks his #1 rule, and probably the rules of the video store. He gives his virginity to...
Karen Kolchak.
Karen Kolchak?
Yes, Karen Kolchak.
This is never shown directly, thankfully, and described sparingly by Randy, so how it all went down is a matter of imagination. Like maybe it's a late night at the video store. Randy and Karen are stocking videos in the adult section like any normal shift when their hands brush against each other, and things escalate from there. Despite his moment of weakness with Karen, Randy still seems to have some feelings for Sydney Prescott. I say this because he follows her to college. It's spring 1997 when we catch up to Randy, having graduated from Woodsboro High and now enrolled in his freshman year at Windsor College in Ohio. A quiet change from the blood-splattered landlines of Woodsboro, where this high school geek tries to come into his own and leave his traumatic past in the end credits. The evening of April 12th, fellow Windsor College students Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens are both brutally killed at an early screening of the in-movie franchise Stab. Guess how they died? The next morning, April 13th, at the Windsor College Film Theory class, we're introduced to a slightly new Randy Meeks. The bright colors used for Randy's high school wardrobe are now absent, and Randy sits calmly in a preppy maroon polo shirt. The class debates reality versus film, and this Randy doesn't hesitate to tell everyman creeper Mickey what's up.
It's a classic case of life imitating art, imitating life.
Let me tell you about reality, Mickey. I lived through this, okay? Life is life. It doesn't imitate anything.
Come on.
It's a far cry from Randy's relationship with Billy, which involved much more flinching, shrinking, and apologies. Similarly, where in the video store Randy argued and got loud to prove his point, college Randy has developed some more confidence. Instead of being jeered by his peers at a high school party, Randy takes Joshua Jackson, aka film class guy number 1, to horror school.
Aliens is a classic, okay? Get away from her, you bitch.
I believe the line is stay away from her, you bitch. It's film class, right?
And he's wrong, but confidently wrong. After an incredibly stressful high school career full of toxic friends and murder, Randy has come into his own in college. This is the beginning of a new act for Randy Meeks.
So, Mr. Originality, how would you make it different?
I'd let the geek get the girl.
Unfortunately, this would also be Randy's final act.
It's starting again, Randy.
It's not. A lot of shit happens at the movies. People get robbed, shot, maimed, murdered. Multiplex is just a very dangerous place to be these days.
And Sydney has a boyfriend. Again.
Hello, Derek. How you doing?
Pre-med too. Whatever, he dies anyway. It's interesting that Randy would choose to go to an Ohio-based school for film in the first place when some of the most popular schools for film are located right in his home state of California. I assume this was for one or two reasons. Perhaps after the nightmare of his senior year in Woodsboro, Randy opted for an environment with as much distance from his teenage home and least chance of murder as manageable. However, I believe Randy most likely chose Windsor College in Ohio to stay close to his crush and final girl, Sydney Prescott, who was attending Windsor for theater studies. Unwittingly, this choice put Randy right back to the wrong end of a Ghostface blade. Any good friend would have encouraged Randy to give up his long-standing crush on Sid. After all, if you survive 2 slashers together and the girl still isn't into you, where else is there to go? What can a gift of flowers do that taking a bullet couldn't? But then again, most of his friends are dead or full-grown adults living in another state. In general, making friends as an adult can be tricky, so he and Sydney are still close, perhaps trauma bonded in perpetuity. Regardless, Randy is initially reluctant to see the mounting evidence even when presented by Sydney. But when news reporter Gail Weathers arrives, Randy switches gears. Because Randy knows once the legacy characters arrive, there's no stopping the horror movie plot from unfolding.
Sydney, look, it's Gail Weathers. Star of the Gail Weathers press conference, based on the book by Gail Weathers, soon to be a major motion picture starring Gail Weathers.
Randy uses his trademark humor to mask what has to be a moment of abject dread. Gail and Sydney are intimately connected to Ghostface through the September 1995 murder of Maureen Prescott. Judging by the events of Scream in 1996, when both are in the same place, everyone becomes collateral. Then Deputy Dewey arrives.
Who's that guy?
An old friend.
Deputy Dewey, Woodsboro's finest. What's he doing here?
Randy's expression in this scene, more muted and tight than while holding his own in class, shows he's aware exactly what Deputy Dewey is doing here. He also already knows, with his horror expertise, where the plot goes when all of the survivors of the original film are in one place. This would have been a great time for Randy to skip town. Isn't it spring break or something? But this is Randy. Randy, who came back to Stu's house for Sid after he knew that Stu was the killer. This is Randy who stayed outside the door with Stu, the killer, when Sid locked them out. This is Randy who wouldn't leave Sydney to die even after getting shot. The reason the media is swarming the Windsor campus is that 2 students lost their lives in a screening of Stab. Rumors that a series of serial killings could be happening again are spreading around the quad, so naturally there's only one thing to do: party. But first, despite his outward hesitance to fully accept Ghostface's return, Randy stops at home to record a very special video.
Told you I'd make a movie someday.
This video wouldn't be seen by audiences or the Scream gang until the 2000 release of Scream 3. But there are some details in Randy's final recording that are relevant to him in the Scream 2 portion of his timeline. Let's go to the tape. From the footage, we can determine a couple things. Randy most likely lives in a dorm and has a roommate named Paul who doesn't knock when entering. And since Randy is sporting the same maroon polo shirt that he wore in film theory class, we can assume that he recorded this video sometime after the press conference, but before the sorority party where he's wearing a collared black button-up sweater. The tape reveals his encounter with with Karen Kolchak and provides the rules for a theoretical third rampage, just in case Randy doesn't survive the second one. We'll come back to that. That night, Randy goes to a Greek house party. Could anyone have imagined that back in Woodsboro? Randy Meeks walking into a gathering of frat bros and sorority sisters out of his own free will? In a black polo shirt, no less? Well, Sydney was there, so I guess it tracks.
Cocktail?
What took you so long?
And here's another moment exemplifying Randy's maturity. Sure, he has a drink waiting for Sydney, but he doesn't hover around and ends up walking off with a blonde, decked out in black lace long sleeve. Wait, no he doesn't. But this positive emotional development doesn't last long. Cops fill the street in front of the sorority house down the road, and that's the end of the Delta Lambda Zeta sorority party, and the beginning of the worst reunion.
Nothing like a funeral to bring the family together.
The Windsor body count rises with the confirmed death of fellow film classmate Cece Cooper on April 13th. Death by Ghostface. It's not long after when Sydney herself is targeted, making it impossible to deny that Woodsboro is happening again in the Midwest. However, Randy has already let go of his denial, as demonstrated by his recording of the tape earlier that afternoon. April 14th, the day after Cece's unfortunate swan dive, Randy sits down with former Deputy Dewey. As they walk through the dining hall, he expresses his frustration with his stab casting.
I don't get it. They get Tori Spelling to play Sid, and they cast Joe Blow Nobody to play me.
Having his likeness cast with the guy who drove Jane Seymour's Stagecoach had to hurt Randy as a cinephile, and Sydney's self-proclaimed love slave. I think Randy is too mature to take it completely seriously, but it doesn't help prevent him from backsliding into his Woodsboro past. Interestingly, Randy's wardrobe also begins to reflect his past, with a return to the brighter greens of his teenage years. I believe this is to illustrate Randy regressing as the past catches up to him.
The way I see it, someone's out to make a sequel. You know, cash in on all the movie murder hoopla. So it's our job to observe the rules of the sequel.
Randy runs through the new rules much quicker and more succinctly than in Scream, where he was admittedly drunk and rattling off rules between empty bottles winged at his head. This illustrates that though Woodsboro is coming for him, he's pushing back against Woodsboro. He doesn't just hope, he knows he can still survive.
Number 1, the body count is always bigger. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore. Carnage, candy. Your core audience just expects it. And number 3, if you want your sequel to become a franchise, never, ever...
How do we find the killer, Randy? That's what I want to know.
Dewey cuts off Randy before the third rule. However, a teaser trailer featured an extended version of the scene, which revealed the third rule would have been...
Never, ever, under any circumstances, assume the killer is dead.
This was initially a reference to Randy's last line in the first movie and a deliberate in-joke by the crew as a nod that it's impossible to ensure a successful horror franchise. Before moving on, let's look at the production of Scream again, as there were some decisions in the development and on set that had major lasting effects for the entire franchise. Writer Kevin Williamson had already planned out 2 sequels before Scream 1996 was optioned. However, during the development of Scream 2, the original script was leaked online, revealing the identity of the Windsor College killers. In the theatrical release of Scream 2, Randy points out Sydney's roommate Hallie as a suspect, despite Dewey's assertion that serial killers are typically, as he puts it, white males.
That's why it's perfect. It's sort of against the rules, but not really. Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer, and there's always room for Candyman's daughter.
Randy also points to Sydney's current boyfriend, Derek, as the Billy Loomis, the obvious killer posing as a boyfriend, but quickly walks it back, claiming that the killer would want to break some new ground and would have half a brain. This is obviously Randy's resentment for Derek because he's dating Sid. But had the original script been produced, Randy wouldn't have been wrong. The leaked script included 4 Ghostface killers: Hallie, Derek, Cotton, and Mrs. Loomis. The leaked script also had a very different role for Randy. Instead of attending college with Sydney, he was Gale Weathers' new cameraman. There's no way to know how the original Scream 2 script would have been received, but while most fans agree that 4 killers would have been overdoing it, the fandom can be split on whether the choice to have Randy behind the camera was the better direction. Personally, I would not want to have to trade in Joel. What's interesting is that though Randy dies in the same manner in both the leaked script and the produced script, it was in Williamson's rewrite that Randy provided the rules to surviving a horror sequel. Strange to think that the rules, which are now a franchise staple, were almost completely left behind. It was by unforeseen circumstances, not by the original design, that Scream 2 launched a meta-commentary subgenre, and it never would have worked without a character like Randy Meeks at the center. Unfortunately for him and his fans, the death he dodged in Woodsboro eventually caught up with him. Gale, Dewey, and Randy are together on the quad when Gale's phone rings. Assuming it to be spam, Randy picks up Gale's phone in frustration.
Gale's not here!
Only to have Ghostface on the line. While Gale and Dewey split off together to assault strangers with phones in hopes of catching the killer, Randy attempts to keep Ghostface on the line as long as possible.
So, what's your favorite scary movie?
The exchange quickly gets personal.
Why are you even here, Randy? You'll never be the leading man.
And Randy makes a critical error, a far more fatal one than sleeping with Karen Kolchak. If he'd been thinking clearly, he might have remembered his own expertise. He might have, at least, walked over to a group of people just to avoid being alone. He might have played it safe with his commentary on the original Ghostface killers.
And Billy Loomis, what the Jesus. What a rat-looking, homo-repressed mama's boy. Why not set your goals higher, huh?
He couldn't have known that that mama's boy's mother was the very person he was speaking to, and that line did not put him in her good graces, or take him off her list. Had he been less emotional, he might have considered that he was holding Gail's phone, meaning that Ghostface was targeting Gail as he wandered aimlessly over to Gail's van, where this happens. Randy's death was and remains controversial among fans. After all, he was relatable to the audience, their proxy, the one character saying what anyone would be thinking watching the horror unfold.
It shouldn't have been Randy. It should have been me.
Imagine a world where that happens. There's some irony in that after Randy takes a solid stance on sequels being inferior in class, a Stab sequel was guaranteed after he became one of the victims. On top of that, his actor proxy would probably be lowest billed, and despite it being fiction, he still probably died. And didn't get the girl. Maybe he can be thankful that he passed away before he saw it. But death wasn't the end of Randy Meeks, or at least his bloodline. His younger sister Martha Meeks was still alive and well.
Don't shoot, I'm only 17!
And now she was 17, about the same age her brother was during the first Ghostface encounter. In this interaction, Randy's lasting effect on others is clear. Randy was loved and still missed as Martha, Sidney, Dewey, and Gail share a somber moment before Martha hands over the VHS tape that Randy had recorded before his untimely death. So, the tape. Before continuing into Randy's legacy after death, we should talk about why this tape exists and how it almost didn't. Again, you can't fully dissect Scream without considering the real-life developments in production. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson saw a lot of success with Scream. With so many projects on his slate, he didn't have time to write the third one, though he did provide an outline. Bob and Harvey Weinstein hired Aaron Kruger to replace him. Surprisingly, this would not go down as Harvey's most heinous crime. Aaron's not that bad. Though Kruger did follow Williamson's outline initially, the backlash after the 1999 Columbine massacre caused producers to request a script change with a greater focus on satire and less focus on teen-on-teen violence. In short, before production began, Scream 3 was a mess and needed something familiar and beloved to anchor the series back to its 1990s roots. Due to the negative feedback from fans over Randy's death in Scream 2, the answer seemed obvious. The production considered different ways to possibly bring him back from the dead. But it was agreed, Randy surviving that brutal van takedown was too unbelievable. I'm looking at you, Fast and Furious. No matter the retrofitted circumstances, so the pre-recorded tape was written in. Speaking of the tape and the unbelievable, why did it take Martha 2 years to hand over a tape specifically recorded to help her dead brother's friends? Maybe Randy explicitly told her to only give it to them if Ghostface was active, but 5 people died before she brought it. She could have mailed it, she could have called and said that she had it. Teenagers.
If you're watching this tape, it means, as I feared, I did not survive these killings here at Windsor College.
Randy warns them that if they find themselves dealing with an unexpected backstory and a preponderance of exposition, then this isn't just another sequel. It's the concluding chapter of the rare horror trilogy with a new set of amended rules.
1. You got a killer who's gonna be superhuman. Number 2. Anyone, including the main character, can die. Number 3. The past will come back to bite you in the ass. Basically, in the third one, you gotta cryogenically freeze his head, decapitate him, or blow him up.
Or put him in an industrial shredder. Not every aspect of Randy's rules for surviving a horror sequel came to pass in Scream 3, but 100% accuracy isn't really the point of Randy Meeks. In a 2021 interview, Kevin Williamson reflected on the reaction to Randy's death in Scream 2. I remember people took Randy's death very hard because at the time, it was a beloved character, which to me is what keeps the franchise moving. If you kill someone you really love, it makes it personal for people. Which, yeah, the audience proxy or surrogate dying does feel pretty damn personal. Randy was the heart of the series. His expert analysis could have been obnoxious or written only as Greek geek chorus, with his relationship to other legacy characters limited to supporting their own characterization. Reportedly, production filmed at least 2 hours of footage with Jamie Kennedy for the tape, and it was condensed down to a quick 3 minutes. Who knows what sort of Randy gems were left on the cutting room floor. The 4th Scream was released in 2011, a decade after Scream 3. While the newly introduced characters are mostly disconnected from the legacy characters, Randy's influence continues with new characters designating themselves as the Randy over their expert horror movie knowledge. And of course, this lasting impression.
Cinema Club thanks you for coming out for our 3rd annual Stab-a-thon. Safety numbers, my friend, safety numbers.
Robbie Mercer, VP of the Woodsboro High School Cinema Club, wears a bright green shirt under a light blue button-up. It's a straight cosplay of Randy's look in Scream 2, which was immortalized in-universe in the Stab films. It's an oddly fitting tribute that Robbie isn't dressed as Randy, but the fictional character of Randy played by an extra from Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Randy at least would probably get a kick out of it. The fifth film, Scream 2022, would feature Randy's niece and nephew, the twin children of his sister Martha, Mindy and Chad Meeks. Mindy takes up the mantle of Randy in the Scream requel, evidence that his character is just as loved and missed in movie as he is by fans. Kevin Williamson and Jamie Kennedy have been clear that Randy is dead and not coming back, but his influence is immortal. Though Randy died, a concept inspired by him became its own trope in the series. With the establishment of the rules throughout the original trilogy, Randy evolved from horror geek to horror expert. Since his death, another character takes up this responsibility in the subsequent sequels. Should Randy have survived long enough to at least anchor a full trilogy? Maybe. But the heartbreak of his loss gave weight to a satirical horror series that was making it up as it went along. Scream is a movie that acknowledges reality while existing within its own. Randy isn't us, the audience, he's who the audience feels they could be. But if we, the audience, were in the movie, are we sure that we'd survive to even the first sequel? Because the franchise rule now seems to dictate that the expert becomes the target.
What's your favorite scary movie?
This could take a while. For more details on the Scream universe, check out these videos on Things You Missed. Remember to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.
So in closing, let me say, good luck, Godspeed, and for some of you, I'll see you soon.
Assuming we both survive.